What is going on, y'all? KMBest here. Let's take a look at the way Scream has evolved with the addition of Batroc the Leaper and a very interesting, albeit maybe we're not sure if it stays in here, Silk package. This is the list that I have been playing recently, and I know a lot of people are going to be clicking on this video looking for the best Hydra Stomper deck, for example, and I do think this is it. I think it is something that is very close to this. I also think that this deck gets a little bit better when other people are trying Hydra Stomper, but I will say, even though the weekend missions are on, the metagame has definitely cooled down from where it was at, which was a very, very move and Scream-centric point immediately after these cards were released. We are back in a real world where people are playing a lot of Thanos and other decks that are actually good, and it's not just entirely move mirrors 100% of the time. Now, I know there are going to be people who watch every video. First of all, thank you. Second of all, you probably heard me really slag off Silk. Just absolutely read her for filth, talk about how much I hated playing her, and then here she is in this deck that I'm like putting a really clickbait title on and being like, wow, this is really good. So KM, what's the deal? Well, I still kind of hate her. I really don't want to understate it here. Like, she is so far and away my least favorite card in the deck. Maybe besides Kingpin, but at least Kingpin isn't messing me up. Silk is fine. Like, the fact that I am able to get a lot of stuff done with her via the Hydra Stomper power or the Craven power, it's cool. I'm not going to sit here and complain about it. But she makes for incredibly complicated board states, even for someone like me. She is an extremely awkward card to plan and play around, and basically all of the final turn board states that are super weird and hard to figure out come down to her and Batroc priority, and just a whole bunch of weird garbage from there. Now, I do think that it's fine to play her if you are doing this, right? Like, the issue you have with being a Silk deck is in every mirror, she is just awful, because if you play the Silk and they play the cards that benefit from Silk, you're losing out on that equation because they're getting all of the Craven procs or Kingpins or Screens or Hydra Stompers. Well, they're not getting that one, but you understand what I'm saying, right? Like, they are gonna get in mirrors more from your Silk than you because they didn't have to play the Silk. And just a card that is that bad in mirrors is really, really rough. As far as Hydra Stomper, I think that this guy is actually more about Batroc Sam than anything else, and the fact that you are running Silk is like your second trigger for a repeated buff for the Batroc, that's really what her job is, but her job is like a job you don't ever want her to actually do. If you have stuff like Batroc Sam Craven, that is a ton of points. It's not just a ton of points immediately, it's a ton of points later in the game, thanks to the way in which these cards scale, and of course to Hydra Stomper itself. Getting those compounding procs is very valuable, but I do want to be clear, the thing this deck is built around is Batroc, and then Craven, and then Sam. Like, those are the things that you want in your opening hand. That's what you want your turn 1, 2, 3 to be. The rest of this stuff is not as good at taking advantage of that. Either you're playing Silk instead of Sam, which is just kind of a shit show some of the time, or you are playing Hydra Stomper instead of Craven, which is just less points in a notable way. That's just really your bad draws here. Now, as far as structural stuff in this deck, there is one card that I am very much a flex spot on, and that is Kingpin, who at this point is basically playing like Nebula or reverse Nebula, in the sense that, like, you play Kingpin and they're always going to play in that lane, which I guess is fine. It's just such an odd little guy that you're just sort of you just don't really have options that I feel like are dramatically better. I think you could cut him for another tech card and not feel terrible about it, but maybe a Hydra Bob, something you can play with a Cannonball. But as far as the general structure of the deck, the one thing that'll really, really stand out is that this deck is remarkably low curve. That can be a good thing, that can be a bad thing. The reason this deck is remarkably low curve is you have a ton of scalers that play for bigger than they are. Obviously, if everything was about the number and the rate that you're getting from the number, this would be, not even close, the best deck in the game, but it's not all about that. The other things that matter are the ability to efficiently use your energy, right? You've got a bunch of these 2-drop cards. When you get to like turn 4, turn 5, suddenly you just don't really have a lot to fill your curve with. It's a very real thing. And it's even worse because Cannonball is such a turn 6 card that you end up putting yourselves in situations where it's like, okay, well, I need to save my miles for 6 with the Cannonball, and so I have my miles and my Cannonball, and that's not bad or anything. It's just like, then what is your turn 5? And the answer is I play a 3-drop a lot of the time. And I'm not sure exactly if that's a fixable thing. I'm not sure if that's a feature or a bug, but it also means that when you are running into locations that give both players extra energy, your opponents are almost always going to be able to use that better than you, because you are playing most of your cards every game anyway. That's what this deck is built to do. And your opponents are not all guaranteed to do that. Something like a Thanos on Elysium is very scary because it basically means that your competitive advantage of having a bunch of cheap guys and being able to play all your cards all the time doesn't exist anymore. And that is a real thing. You'll notice that when you play this deck. The curve is low, the points are high. I also want to give special mention to Red Guardian, who is your only actual tech card in here, and is the perfect card to run if you only have one spot for a tech card. He can cover so many random angles. He's not perfect, but he's the best we're going to do. I really have appreciated his presence in this list. It's been quite strong for me. If you have a Sam Wilson in your hand, Batroc the Leaper is honestly pretty close to a snap condition. Being able to move this guy and then get your Sam Wilson procs, and then God forbid you get a Craven in addition to that, because then you move the Sam shield into the Craven lane, Batroc follows, 2 procs on the Craven, 1 proc on the Batroc. It ends up being just a massive, massive, massive plus power play. Craven ends up, like, it's effectively 6 power for a move that you get for free. Moving back onto the Sam is 4 power. Again, you get it for free. And of course, both of them are buffing Hydra Stomper as well. This is a very, very strong card, and in my opinion, probably the best of the move cards that was recently released. Kingpin is very much a flex spot here. I like having a 1-drop that can do stuff sometimes. This is not always going to be a thing you need. You can mess around with this slot. I feel like he's pretty much replacement level, and there's other stuff you might want to be aiming for, but I haven't been overly upset with him enough to actually make any changes here. I think people are a little bit high on what Scream actually is. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that she's bad, but you definitely have other lines that are preferable to her. This is a card that I am very often playing on turn 4 if I have the Sam stuff going on, if I have like Sam Batroc or Sam Craven. I would rather get those on the board than I would a Scream. Now, you are going to want to try to protect her from Red Guardian by keeping her in the Sam Wilson shield lane as much as you possibly can, but Scream's actual strength is that she can support these other incredible scalers a lot of the time. And the reason for this is largely that she doesn't need very many procs in order to be a really good investment. When you get 2 procs on her, that's a 2/9. You're just happy with that. And you can get 2 procs on her extremely easily. This is like a very easy thing to do between Spider-Man, Polaris, Cannonball. You're really only just looking at her in that context. This is not a deck that is built to optimize Scream. It's a deck that runs some of the stuff that moves your opponent's cards, because that stuff is like your Batroc C plan if you don't have Sam or if you don't have Silk. But that stuff overlaps with Scream, and so we're doing that as well. Sam Wilson is a card about which there has been an incredible amount of debate. I do think he is relatively ubiquitous, but I think he's a relatively harmless form of ubiquitous in that he is pretty much being played in decks that have synergies with him. And granted, he has a lot of different synergies, but this is very different from if something like Bullseye was at a massive play rate, because that's really one deck. Sam Wilson is a bunch of different decks because he goes with a bunch of different things. He's a created card for Mockingbird and Strange Supreme. He's an ongoing card for any deck that cares about ongoing cards. He's 2 ongoing cards, really. He's a mover for anyone playing Batroc and Craven. And so this is not actually a card. I think people have this perception of him as a card people are running because he's busted on rate. I think a lot of these decks would be running him almost rate agnostic because of his synergies, which is a long way of saying I think they have room to nerf this guy again. Currently, my head is thinking like 2, 3, and +1 on the scaling is where I'd be at. But I think that's mostly a reaction to just he's kind of in a bunch of stuff and Marvel Snap players really enjoy novelty because I gotta tell you, I don't find this guy oppressive at all. And granted, I only really find a couple of things in this game oppressive. They're typically non-interactive, just, oh, there's nothing you can do about this. Here's a bunch of points on the final turn of the game, like Hella or move bounce kind of stuff, where the answers to them are either too deck intensive to do in anything other than a hard counter deck, or are just like 50-50s like Cosmo and Eliath. That's typically my least favorite kind of deck to exist, and I think that Sam Wilson basically never promotes that style of gameplay, so I'm a little sympathetic to him. I'm sympathetic to the people who think he's overplayed or just too strong, but I don't really think he's unfair in that way. Like, since the 2-3 nerf, I wouldn't be shocked if this was like, a 52% win rate card as opposed to like a 54 or 55, and I think that's fine. There is also a sort of environmental concern where, okay, Sam Wilson does really well with ongoing cards, right? Well, we just got a whole season full of ongoing cards like Goliath and Captain Carter. Oh, Sam Wilson goes really well with Thanos. Well, they just buffed Thanos. They made him 12 power and they buffed the Bluestone, right? Oh, Sam Wilson goes really well with Move. Here's 4 Move cards on the same day. And so I do think that there is something to the idea that it's not just that Sam Wilson is very good, but also that the things that contextually make him stronger are repeatedly getting new infusions of what we'll say talent. And that does matter. Craven is a remarkably powerful card when you are moving as many cards as this deck is. The traditional sort of Silky Smoove idea of Craven was that it would never get to Shang-Chi-able levels of power. You are getting to Shang-Chi-able levels of power now. You just are doing that. This is a 2-drop that'll get to like 11 power pretty regularly. Batroc following Sam Wilson or Silk is just going to do it a lot of the time. Just a couple of those and you're just like, oh, that guy's enormous. That is aside of everything else your deck is able to do, like dragging cards over there and things like that. The guy's gonna get big as hell. Spider-Man is just the cheapest opponent mover, and you still like having very cheap opponent movers in large part because, you're still a Craven deck, you're still a Batroc deck, you're still a Scream deck. The synergy here should be pretty obvious. Having something that triggers that stuff for cheap is very, very powerful. The cheaper you have these cards, the more likely you are to be able to, like, combine them on turn 5 to actually clog somebody. Polaris Spider-Man can do that. It's a pretty solid line, too. Okay, so let's talk about her. I still am not in love with her. Like, I don't know. I feel like when I play this deck, I would very much rather not be doing what she does. And if she is a card that's supposed to be in this deck, it's as a sort of grudging plan B, so your Batroc just gets better. But like, I really can't overstate how much I don't like playing this card. Not just the complexity, but like the, oh, well, guess I lose because she clogged me. She's a factory of 50-50s and complexity and awkwardness and really, really god-awfully bad in mirrors. The only thing she's good for in a mirror is just like maybe your Hydra Stomper will be bigger than theirs, but between cards like Scream and Batroc and Craven, it's tough. I have enjoyed having this card in the deck, in large part because in order to get this card in the deck, we ended up making the curve even lighter, and sometimes we just lack big guys. But like this guy is going to be like 6 to 13 a lot of the time. 6 is sort of your low end. 13 is your like, I nutted off with Batroc and things of that nature kind of thing. Like Batroc Sam, 2 procs a turn, then some other movers. That's sort of like the upside here. But the reason that matters is you don't have a lot of top end points. We've talked about this, how like your opponents are better at using extra energy than you are, things like that. And this is actually just like a guy that can get to double digits fairly reasonably and does not have to be played early. One of the things I think I see a lot of people making mistakes with this card is they'll just like play it really early where it can just sit on the board and be vulnerable to like every tech card in the entire game. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world to play early, but this is very much a guy you'll want to deploy strategically. Whenever there's a deck that is hard up for spots for tech cards, the answer is almost always Red Guardian. He's not going to be as impactful as a Shang-Chi or an Enchantress, but he is going to be extremely good on rate and deal with some of the problems that usually only those cards can solve, and several problems that really only he can solve. He just ends up being the most widely applicable good rate tech card. Whenever I've got one slot in a deck, this is the guy that I turn to. Polaris is very, very tangential here. Like, you can pretty much understand why she's being run. This is a Batroc proc when you aren't Sam or Silking. This is a Scream proc. This is occasionally a Craven proc, a Kingpin proc. You get it. That's what she's here for. She's a 3/5 that does those things. Miles Morales is here mostly to be your turn 6 play alongside a Cannonball. A lot of what you do ends up looking like that. Deploy Miles somewhere, 6 power, then Cannonball some other lane, win off the Cannonball. That's pretty much the job Miles has here. There are some times you deviate from that. Like, it's hard to commit to that if you don't have a Cannonball, but like, you're so good at playing so much of your hand at any given time that it's hard for me to want to play out Miles early unless I think I'm under threat of like a Mobius or something. Honestly, Cannonball not amazing right now. Like, he's far from actively bad, but I don't think he's as good as he's been in a long time, at least in this list, in large part because when you think about the decks that actually like fill stuff up, right? You're looking at like Thanos. Thanos fills the board up and plays the Orange Stone, and then Cannonball doesn't hit the Thanos. And it's just like, oh, you know, it does kind of suck that the deck that does this the best, or the deck that this should be good against, the deck that fills up its own lanes, yeah, just like has a get out of jail free button on it. Like, it does matter, and I have noticed it. I'm not saying I'm going to swap him out for Arrow. He is better than that. But I think it's actually a lot closer than it used to be. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I have been KMBest. You have been phenomenal. And I will see you in the next one. We're about to jump into some gameplay, and I hope you enjoy it. Oh, man. I gotta tell you, I appreciate that way more than the people who are actually trying to say GG. Oh, you were doing a thing. I get it. My bad. My bad. I understand. I understand now. I think I want to Polaris that. All right. Fascinating. They lost the Topaz. Oh, that's really interesting. This is fucking fascinating. I truly have no idea. Okay. I gotta tell you, had zero clue what was happening during that game. That's a crazy one. 2 silks. So that's 6 things that went boom. Seven energy. So this looks like it should be pretty good for me if that's just like a death in the middle or something. Oh, that works. That works. That definitely works. Well, it was close. They could have won. if they'd gone Death in the middle, Deadpool in the middle, Venom on the right, and gotten that same roll, they could have won. 21 cards, so Orisham. I'm probably snapping that, yeah. Wait, is that a random Agamotto, or is that their actual Agamotto? Sure. I got my ass. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. I see. Fascinating. Okay, that's probably a Hydra Stomper. Okay, so what the hell am I fucking... Whoa! Okay! A game I definitely knew what was happening the entire time in. That's definitely a game. Ugh. Iron Lad. So this is like the Doom 2099 deck. I really hope I didn't just give them this. Honestly, a lot of my cards are bad. Oh, I did just give them Sam. That sucks. Well, it's not my favorite thing I've ever hit. If they move that shield, I get a Captain Carter hit. If they don't move that shield, I get to blow up Sam and trap them. Wow, they did move the shield. I got owned. This works for me, I think. I didn't do math, actually. That was stupid. But I'm pretty sure it works. Pretty fucking sure this is fun. It is very fun. It is